Hey, how you doing? I hope you had a really good weekend. I've got a really interesting dilemma that I'm kind of struggling with, so I thought I'd ask your opinion. As you know, I've been training now fairly intensively, 2-3 times a week for the last month and a half, something like that. Loving it, struggling a bit, fitness is improving massively, skills are slowly but surely coming back, some things are instinctively happening. I found myself dropping on a quarter Nelson and flipping someone over the other day without even thinking about it. It was just there, I did it, and wow, okay. So, from that perspective, I'm really happy. But something happened, and it's put me in a really interesting position where I'm kind of questioning myself, and I'm not sure what to do. So let me tell you, let me give you a bit of background. The gym where I train is just down the road. It's a kind of martial arts centre that attached to a big gym, run by a lovely guy who's a Muay Thai instructor first and foremost, but he does other things as well. My son does a kids BJJ class there. If you're interested, this is the son, Pico Baby, who had cancer. He's now completely clear, and now he's grappling too. But unfortunately, over the weekend, his instructor, the guy who teaches the kids classes, who's great, got COVID. Was a little under the weather, ill enough that he didn't feel able to train and didn't want to pass it on. So he basically said he couldn't do it. So Seb, who runs the gym, dropped me a message saying, "Hey, do you want to come and run a kids catch class instead?" And we've talked about it before. We've talked about setting up a regular class there, and it's definitely something that we both kind of like to do. But this seemed like a really good opportunity to test the water. So I said yes. Saturday morning came, went down, had a great time. Absolutely fantastic time. Lovely bunch of kids. We all had a lot of fun. Taught them some basic things. We played some silly games. We did some drills, the usual stuff. Finished off by letting them all try and pin me one at a time, and I'd effectively just make them work harder than they wanted to in order to get the result. It's lovely. They all seem to really enjoy it, and it's kind of cemented for me that I definitely want to run this class. But there are now quite a few conversations going on, because what tends to happen is Old Man Corner, where I usually find myself sitting during the kids' classes, has the dads of the kids who are grappling, and they're the same people that I grapple with. And they're now saying, "Oh, you should run a catch class for adults." And this is the issue. Should I start teaching catch as catch can? Let me try and explain the dilemma for you. Effectively, I really struggle with the fact that if I run a catch wrestling class down at that gym for adults, I know full well exactly the sort of person who'll turn up. There will be a lot of experienced martial artists, grapplers in that room, from BJJ white belt all the way up to black belt, who have done various things. Some have travelled the world, trained with various people, who will come along to learn what I have to teach. And that makes me feel really deeply insecure, because I know full well that were I to just get on the mats and fight with these guys, to wrestle against them, grapple with them, roll with them, I wouldn't necessarily be able to beat them. And that makes me feel a bit weird about whether I should be teaching something. So I've thought about this quite a lot, and it's kind of... What I've come up with in my head is that the people who have influenced me the most when it comes to wrestling, the coaches who have had the biggest impact on what I do, what I'm able to do, and what I know, fall very, very much into two different categories. There are those people like Josh Barnett, who's had a big influence on me, because I've trained with Josh a few times, 2 kind of 3-day camps. It's not a massive amount, 6 days training with the guy over the space of a couple of years, but enough that it's had a significant difference to the way I think, the way I train, and the way I act on the mats. But the fact is that Josh may well be slightly past his best, but Josh's best is so good that being slightly past it is pretty much irrelevant. He could still walk into any ring, any cage, any mat, anywhere in the world and hold his own perfectly well. And clearly, I'm not able to do that. But, you know, what a stupid idea to compare myself to someone like Josh Barnett, who is absolute top of the food chain. But, you know, inside, that's kind of what you do, isn't it? You compare yourself against the people who taught you. Am I as good at doing this as the person who taught me this? No, I'm not. But the fact is, even if I hadn't injured my knee, even if I'd still been training through that period of time, even if I was training 4 or 5 times a week, I still wouldn't be anywhere near as good as him. And do you have to be as good as Josh Barnett to teach catch wrestling? Probably not. But then there's the other kind of group. And in that group, I put Billy Robinson and, to a degree, Wade Shallers. Now, Wade, I suspect, could still kick my ass if he wanted to, and he probably wouldn't even break a sweat. I suspect he'd probably regret it the next day, and he'd struggle to walk, but it's just not. But I kind of put him in this category because he's a bit older, he's long retired, but he's also, it's had a massive, massive impact on me. What Billy taught was not so much how to wrestle. He did teach that. He taught a lot of techniques in great detail. But what Billy taught was more learning how to learn to wrestle. He kind of gave me the foundation of understanding what catch wrestling is and how you can develop your own style, how you can do these techniques and how to work on them, how to improve, how to get better. And that's knowledge I have, even if I don't necessarily have the physical ability. And when I was training under Billy, he didn't have the physical ability. There was no way that Billy would have been able to beat anyone in that room, even the rankest beginner. And that was probably me. The first time I ever trained with him was pretty much the first time I ever trained in catch wrestling. I mean, what an amazing introduction to catch wrestling, to train under someone like Billy Robinson. But even at that point, he was an old man who was dealing with a lifetime of crippling injuries. He literally had to peel his own fingers open to be able to let them come around somebody's arm to hold the wrist, to demonstrate where he expected you to hold. This was a man who had very little physical ability, but vast amounts of knowledge, and was still able to teach people really very effectively. I don't have Billy Robinson's level of knowledge. I'm not claiming I do. But what Billy does show us there is that you don't have to necessarily be able to do it to be able to teach it. Someone like Wade, he's an interesting one, falls somewhere in the middle, because despite hip replacements, despite having broken his neck, despite a stroke, things like that, he's still really very able. But what Wade has got more than anything else, and what I've taken from training with Wade, is this amazingly in-depth knowledge of how to move someone around that doesn't want to be moved. The metaphors he creates, the mental pictures, allow you to understand exactly what's going on and to apply that in real high-pressure situations. And that's something that I'd like to think, a really good understanding of, because of the time I've spent training with Wade and exchanging emails and asking, sending him questions. Hey coach, I'm really struggling with this. What do you think I should do? And he'd send me stuff back. But again, a lot of the time what he's doing, he's not necessarily sending me techniques. He's sending me concepts. He's sending me ideas. When a lumberjack cuts down the tree, he makes sure he's not underneath it when it falls. That's one of the emails I got back from him. And it's just like, well, yeah, okay. That makes perfect sense, but what that is a fantastic concept that I can apply to the problem I presented him with. And that's what training with Wade is like. Just these fantastic stories and images and mental pictures that teach you certain things. Wade's clock technique, if you've ever trained with Wade, you'll have seen the t-shirt he wears with the numbers around the neck and the train track on the back and the rib sandwiches and the baler hat. All of these things, they're all amazing things that allow you to understand exactly what's going on. And that's knowledge I have. I can pass that on. And when I sit in a BJJ class, whether I'm training or not, and somebody demonstrates a takedown, 9 times out of 10, probably 99 times out of 100, I wince. Because I've trained with some of the greatest catch wrestlers there have been. And when I see something done and I look at it and just go, I'm not in a position to criticise because I'm a white belt with no stripes at all. But when it comes to takedowns, I'm still pretty good. Even though I'm a fat, very old cripple, I've still got that knowledge. So it's a really difficult thing. There's a degree of imposter syndrome going on there, without a doubt. But the question is, I guess, should I be teaching this? Or should I just focus on my own training and just get better and accept that I'm never actually going to be good enough at this to feel I can teach it? I'd be really interested in your thoughts. I don't really have a point other than that. It's just, this is the mental dilemma that I'm going through at the moment. People want me to teach what I know. I'm not sure I feel okay with that. Am I right to feel a bit odd about it? Or should I just suck it up and do it and accept that if Billy Robinson can stand there in a room full of incompetence and not want to kill us all, he probably did want to kill us all, and teach, maybe I should teach people who might benefit from some of the things I have to teach. I don't know. I'd be really interested to hear your perspective, what you think. Are you an older practitioner that also teaches? How does that work for you? If you're looking at maybe demonstrating stuff, if you teach grappling and you roll or you wrestle, how does it feel to be up against people who are definitely your students but could kick your ass? I mean, yeah, let me know. I'd be really interested to hear. We're getting towards the end of the month, and I still haven't decided which book I'm going to put out on Patreon this month, but I will, and I'm going to do that within the next day or two. So if you'd like to get a copy of it, then do sign up to Patreon. Thanks to all of my supporters who have already signed up. You guys are amazing. And to everyone that's got this far in the video, fight team!